Hi, this is Lana with Psychosomatic Alchemy, and today we're having a preliminary talk about the analytical meditation on death and impermanence, which is coming up on Friday, October 29th. So we're going to talk about what are the benefits of death meditation and why we do it. Well, first of all, it brings us in touch with reality, with how things really are. With every breath that we take, we're racing closer to our impending end. And if we keep this in mind, we're more likely to just stop wasting time and get our priorities straight. Another thing that it does is it builds renunciation naturally. So you have read about spiritual masters, and one of the sort of spiritual virtues is to not have attachment to certain things. There is a lot of misunderstanding revolving around this concept, and people tend to think that, if I want to be a spiritual person, I have to give up all the beautiful things in life and I should not own things. And that's actually not the case. Renunciation is when we simply, our attitude about life changes. Our attitude about material possessions. You can still have your possessions and enjoy it. You can enjoy your beautiful body and continue to beautify it, and you can enjoy all nice things in life, but you're not you're not invested in those things. Those things are not necessary for your happiness and fulfillment. So with death meditation, what happens is that, recognizing that we are racing towards death every moment, and we don't have time or energy to waste, it makes it easier for us to just let go of our preoccupation with worldly petty concerns and things that are not really truly meaningful to us and useful ultimately. Another important element of death meditation is that it fuels us to dedicate ourselves to spiritual practice. Now, what is spiritual practice? First of all, I just want to mention that a lot of people have very loose and varied interpretation of what spirituality is. For some people, it's collecting crystals. For other people, it's reading cards. For somebody else, it's doing yoga. Now, all those things could be spiritual in nature and also could be totally opposite of that. So what is it that designates something as spiritual or not? So spiritual practice is anything that takes us away from the mind that's completely preoccupied with the self, which is pretty much a mind of our human animal. It's this self-serving aspect that is always concerned about, what am I getting out of something? What's in it for me? Me. And that state of mind is inherently really, really stressful and fearful, and the fixation is always the self, and that's like a bottomless pit, because it's all when I'm at the center of the universe, and there is always more things to own and more things to get, and there are endless itches to scratch. We're really not free. We're at the mercy of this kind of inner hunger, and the more we get, the more we want, because ultimately the fulfillment doesn't come from collecting things that we desire. Things that we desire are not just material in nature. They're also like validation, reputation, and things of that nature. So spiritual practice is anything that takes us away from ego grasping, which is a direct result of giving in to this inner animal that's fear-based and egocentric and preoccupied endlessly with the self. And spiritual practice is anything that takes us closer to the other spectrum, opposite spectrum of our human capacities, which is awareness, self-awareness, and awareness that we are intimately interconnected with all sentient beings around us, and then the capacity to feel a sense of ever expansive love and compassion and care for other things. When we live in this domain of our human capacity, we are less affected by attachments and aversions of the mind, which are inherently connected to ego grasping. So we're ultimately happier, we're free, our mind becomes free. We're not, our happiness does not depend on what somebody says or does for us. It's just contained within ourselves. And this is why, it is completely worthwhile to dedicate ourselves to spiritual practice. So let's create this little experiment, a little analysis, and take yoga, for example. A lot of people practice it. It's definitely a spiritual discipline. But if we practice it with intention to kind of have a beautiful body so that everybody can see that we're somehow valuable because of that, or desirable, or if we do it while we are competing with other people around us and thinking, oh, look at me, my handstand is so much better than his handstand, and so forth. Like that kind of attitude, this example is where the ego hijacks the spiritual tools and turns them into just another tool to strengthen its own position. So this is no longer spiritual practice, and it's actually even worse, because we think we're doing spiritual practices, but instead we're actually building our ego grasping. And that's spiritual materialism, and it's tragic because, we're working against ourselves without even realizing. So attitude, the underlying attitude is everything. And here is another food for thought. Ego also knows how to do those things outside of our conscious awareness. And this is where things get really tricky. And for this reason, meditation, where we teach ourselves to silence the mind so that we can look inside and sort of see with great clarity, that's kind of an invaluable practice. So meditation is something that eventually we're gonna have to get to and practice on a daily basis to really fine-tune our capacity, of inner sight. This analytical practice on death and impermanence comes to us from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Now, a lot of people think, why would I contemplate my own death? That's so morbid. And actually, I will share a little story to help answer that question. And I was at one of the Tibetan Buddhist teachings, and one of the women in the audience shared with the Lama her distress that anytime she ponders her death or does death meditation, she feels a sense of unease and it just doesn't, feels fearful. And the Lama said to her, if you feel anxiety and fear just at the thought of death, of your own death, and what's going to happen when you're actually on your deathbed? So I would like to invite you to join me on this journey, and even if it may feel really uncomfortable to think in this way, I encourage you to please just give it a chance and do it at least once to the end. And also you will find that doing this practice, in addition to all the other benefits that you may reap from it, what it also does is that it gives us a sense that we're all in this together. So it really has a chance to help us connect with others and realize that, we are in this together and we should be helping each other. And that actually should be our priority, to be better people and kinder to each other, and to sort of go through this process together, and we will reach the fruit of our labor much sooner if we stick together.